Hello everyone, it's Theme Park Avenue, I'm Eric. After visiting every Six Flags park except Mexico this year, I thought it would be great to talk about the best roller coaster at each park. And for this video, I am joined by Mike from Canobie Coaster. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to this channel along with Canobie Coaster. Both of our channels have a lot of rankings and park reviews for you to enjoy. Now in this video, Mike and I will each talk about our favorite roller coaster at each Six Flags park and explain why we think it's the top coaster at the park. We may also discuss some other great rides at the parks and compare them to see which one could be number one. There's bound to be some disagreements, but that's all part of the fun. Let's begin. We will go in order of how I rank the number one coasters at each park, so we'll start with Frontier City. Frontier City definitely has the weakest coaster lineup of any park in the chain, and I haven't even been on the best ones. When I went, both Diamondback and Silver Bullet were closed for maintenance. Because of this, my choice is Wildcat. This is about as tame as a wooden coaster can get, but it's still fine. There is a tiny bit of airtime, which is surprising given the airtime focused layout. I would think there would be more. And it's a bumpy ride even during the airtime. So bumpy airtime is a pretty new experience. That said, it's a nice ride with a decent setting. However, this is easily the weakest number one I've experienced. How about you, Mike? What's your favorite at this park?
It took me 2 visits to ride all the coasters at this park, but Diamondback is the clear favorite for me. This Aero shuttle coaster is a simple layout, but you get some extreme ejector airtime when you're blasted down the drops, particularly the backwards one. Then you also have a very forceful vertical loop as well.
Great Escape is one where the gap between number 1 and number 2 is astronomical. I don't think anybody will be surprised when I say Comet is my favorite. I didn't get on Alpine Bobsled or Flashback, but I doubt they are anywhere near this ride. Comet is a great wooden coaster with excellent airtime and speed, along with a good ride duration and no painful moments. I wouldn't say it's a top tier ride, but it might be a top 15 wooden coaster I've ridden. Would Comet be your favorite, Mike?
I have ridden all the coasters here, but Comet is the clear star. The park takes very good care of this classic wood coaster. The ride has a double out and back layout with a sea of bunny hills. The airtime isn't too strong, but it's plentiful. And the ride also mixes in some laterals on the unbanked turns and a few kinked bunny hills as well.
Darien Lake is a pretty solid top 3 despite it not being the most popular Six Flags park. Predator is a great wooden coaster that I didn't find painful and I thought had some great airtime and speed. The Titan track is glass smooth, though the transition in and out of it is pretty jarring. It's pretty close to Comet in quality for me. Tantrum is also great for its smoothness and layout, but it's too short to be the number 1. Unsurprisingly, I would call Ride of Steel the best coaster at the park. The highlights are the phenomenal speed and airtime moments. This ride is one of the rougher hypercoasters, but I also love the setting of the ride because the helixes over the water are phenomenal. I don't think it's one of the best hypercoasters, but it is a great ride and definitely takes the top spot. What is your favorite ride here, Mike?
Ride of Steel is my favorite here. The prototype Intamin Hyper has some dead spots in the layout, but the drop, camelbacks, and bunny hills are fantastic. All deliver strong ejector airtime, particularly that third hill. And this one also has a fun setting above the water, which is something you usually don't see with a ride of this scale.
Some might immediately assume Six Flags America is a spot above Darien Lake because I think Superman Ride of Steel is the same quality as Darien Lake's. However, Superman is not my favorite ride in the park. I love this Ride of Steel and I find it smoother, but also a bit slower than the Darien Lake one, and it's not my number 1. So what is? Is it Joker's Jinx with its intense second half and disorienting layout? Is it perhaps Wild One, the airtime packed but somewhat rough wooden coaster? No, it's Batwing. This may surprise some, but this ride is awesome. The ride is intense with phenomenal inversions and a great sense of speed. The low to the ground parts are genuinely scary because of how fast and close they come to the grass. I find it to be a smooth ride as well, and Batwing rivals some B&M flyers, which I love more than most people. This is an unorthodox pick, but one I'm definitely confident in. Mike, what's your favorite ride at Six Flags America?
For me, it's Superman. The ride is a mirror image of Darien Lake's Ride of Steel. This one runs equally as well, and while I prefer the setting of Darien Lakes, this one still has a nice setting in the woods that makes for awesome night rides.
St. Louis is a tough one as there are many coasters here that people love that I just don't think are top rides here. American Thunder was closed when I went, so I can't comment on that. The Boss is a fantastic ride in terms of speed, intensity, and layout, but it is quite rough. The ride is too painful for me to truly love it, but it could have been number 1 otherwise. Screamin' Eagle has some good airtime, but it is absolutely brutal and hurts far more than Boss for me. Due to this, my favorite coaster at the park is Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast. It's a bit bumpy in the back row, but not painful. It also has outstanding elements and intensity, and it's among my favorite Premier Rides roller coasters. Mike, what do you think is the best ride at Six Flags St. Louis?
Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast is my favorite ride here. The ride is intense. The launch doesn't have too much power, but everything else does. The inverted top has one of the most forceful and disorienting elements in the world. The overbank applies even more positives. Then the giant spike offers oodles of weightlessness, especially if you're in that back car.
La Ronde is almost as easy a choice as Great Escape. While I do love Vampire and I find Le Monster to be underrated, Goliath is definitely the best. The ride has fantastic airtime and speed, and the finale is quite surprising. This is on par with a full-scale B&M Hyper and is a great number 1. Mike, how do you feel about La Ronde's number 1?
Goliath is the best ride here by far. Very few people talk about this B&M Hyper, but few rides can match how much floater airtime this ride offers. Some may call this ride's layout basic, but every single Camelback and Bunny Hill gives sustained floater airtime. Then the turnaround and banked hills mix in some laterals along with those negative Gs. And you also have some great views of Montreal along the ride.
It hurts to talk about Great America this early because this is actually my favorite Six Flags park for its abundance of great rides. However, its number 1, while definitely above La Ronde for me, is not a truly elite coaster like a lot of other Six Flags parks have. There are some standouts of the park for sure. X-Flight is an underrated B&M wing coaster with awesome intensity and inversions. Max Force is a short launch coaster with some great moments, though it wouldn't be my number 1. Goliath is probably the most common number 1 at the park for its spectacular elements such as the stall, dive loop, and airtime hill. For me, it is a bit too short to be the top ride, so I'm choosing a long ride in Raging Bull. This ride does not have standout elements besides the first drop, but it is a long and intense ride that is extremely fun. There isn't anything else I could call number 1 at this park because I enjoy this ride so much. Mike, what is your favorite coaster at Six Flags Great America?
Max Force is my favorite. This ride is my favorite launch in the US. You forcefully rocket down the launch track with no warning. It feels like you instantaneously teleport. Then the rest of the layout, while short, has fun inversions. The ones at the start and end have some nice hang time. Then the barrel roll has incredible laterals as you charge through it.
Six Flags Over Georgia has no shortage of great rides. Underrated ones such as Superman Ultimate Flight, Daredevil Dive, and Batman the Ride could be number 1 at quite a few Six Flags parks. However, Twisted Cyclone and Goliath are definitely the top 2. Twisted Cyclone is easily the weakest RMC hybrid I've done for its short duration and weak pacing, but it still has the great airtime inversions you would expect. Goliath does take my top spot at this park though. The first drop, floater hills, intense helix, and final ejector hills are all grand and fun, making one of the best B&M rides out there, above Raging Bull and any other previously mentioned coaster. Goliath takes the crown for me, but what do you think, Mike?
It is the same for me. Goliath is my favorite. I think this is one of the best B&M Hyper layouts. The airtime seems stronger, and the turnaround helix has some intense positive Gs. I also really like how this coaster takes you on a journey outside the park. The one downside with this ride is that the first few valleys are shaky, but it's not enough to spoil the ride.
Six Flags Over Texas has so many great roller coasters, but it is easy to choose the number 1. While I love the airtime packed Shockwave, ridiculously intense Runaway Mountain, always fun Batman the Ride, super fast and forceful Titan, and superior version of Mr. Freeze, I have to go with New Texas Giants. The ride does lose speed in the second half, but everything else about this ride is fantastic. Great airtime and intensity, a long ride, and so much fun it's even more enjoyable than B&M Hypers for me. I find this ride very underrated, but what do you think about the number 1 at Over Texas, Mike?
You can tell New Texas Giant was a prototype, but it is a great first coaster for RMC. The ride has an awesome drop and some nice bunny hills, and it has more length than most RMCs. The ride does sort of peter out towards the end, and I wish it had an inversion, but it's still a nice signature ride for the original Six Flags park.
Six Flags Discovery Kingdom has truly underrated coasters, but the number one is pretty clear cut for me. I love the intensity and speed of Superman Ultimate Flight and the great inversions of Medusa, but the Joker is easily my favorite ride here. This ride is long, has great airtime and inversions, holds its speed, and aside from the first drop, it just rocks in every aspect. Some of you may wonder why I'm bringing up Discovery Kingdom this late in the vid, but Joker may actually be in my top 10 coasters. Yeah, and we have 4 to go, which speaks to the quality of the next few rides. Mike, do you hold Discovery Kingdom's number 1 to very high standard?
Joker is an underrated RMC for me. I love this ride in the back. It has an excellent first drop blending ejector airtime and laterals. Then this may have the best inversion of a US RMC. The stall is the star as you get inverted airtime and head choppers, but you also get nice hang time on the step up underflip and the 0G roll. Then the ride has a handful of nice bunny hills throughout the layout to pop you out of your seat.
Some of you are probably shocked that El Toro only got the award of 4th best number 1. However, you'll be even more shocked to hear that El Toro is not representing Great Adventure. Don't get me wrong, El Toro is a fantastic ride and one of the best wooden coasters out there. The first drop, airtime, and sense of speed are all mind-blowing. Everything about the ride could possibly make it the best Six Flags coaster, except for the roughness. Even in the front row, where this ride is at its smoothest for me, the ride has some jackhammering that keeps me from fully enjoying it. Otherwise, this would probably be the best at Great Adventure. But what is my favorite at Great Adventure? Is it the intense floorless coaster Medusa, the airtime-packed B&M Hypercoaster Nitro, the fast-paced and long enjoyable Jersey Devil coaster? Nope, it's Kingda. Call me GP, but this ride is phenomenal. The launch has so much power and intensity, and I don't think any other roller coaster can counter the sheer force this ride exerts on you. It is a fast ride that is over quickly, but it does not feel that way. There was nothing I dislike about this ride, and I would definitely say it's my favorite at the park and one of the best roller coasters in the world. Mike, I don't suppose you feel the same way about Kingda, do you?
While Kingda is the biggest rush in the park, El Toro is my favorite. The first drop, 2 camelbacks, and rolling Thunderhill are 4 of the best airtime moments in the world. They offer some serious sustained ejector. The ride isn't perfect though. The middle section and finale are decent, not elite. Then there are a few bumpy bits in the layout, but this can be mitigated by avoiding a wheel seat.
Let's jump right into the top 2 at this park. You know my favorite is either Wicked Cyclone or Superman the Ride. Wicked Cyclone is definitely a great RMC, and could probably be the 3rd best number 1. But my favorite coaster at Six Flags New England is Superman the Ride. Wicked Cyclone is almost a top tier RMC, but the final third loses speed and it isn't as fun as the first 2/3. While it's an awesome ride, my number 1 is Superman. This is more or less the perfect roller coaster. It isn't the fastest Intamin, but it has excellent airtime, great intensity, a long, masterful layout, and an incredibly fun overall experience. It is my favorite traditional hypercoaster. Which of the top 2 do you like most, Mike?
From 2015 to 2018, I would have said Wicked Cyclone. Bizarro or Superman ran pretty sluggish during this time, but Superman got new wheels in 2019 and it restored the ride to its former glory. I just love this layout. The first half packs in some powerful and sustained ejector airtime. Then the Spaghetti Bowl second half blends good positives and some abrupt ejector pops. I know some take issue with this ride's restraints, but they don't bother me one bit.
Fiesta, Texas is another park with many great rides, but 2 standouts. I love Goliath, Poltergeist, and Superman Krypton Coaster. Like with New England though, there are 2 coasters that stand out. Those are Iron Rattler and Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster. This is an easy choice for me because Wonder Woman was closed when I went. Iron Rattler is an amazing coaster and everything about it is awesome. The first drop, the speed, the airtime, the inversions, and especially the setting. The ride feels fairly long as well, and there is not a dull moment the whole way through. It ranks above most RMCs for me because I can't fault anything about it. It's easily my favorite at the park, and my second favorite Six Flags roller coaster. What's your favorite roller coaster at Fiesta, Texas, Mike?
Wonder Woman was open for me, and while it is the most intense ride in the park, Iron Rattler is my favorite. This ride is my favorite drop in the world. The way that first drop offers crazy ejector airtime and laterals while also diving off a quarry cannot be beat. Then you also have another sizable drop off the quarry later in the ride for good measure. I know some fault this ride's pacing. While that section above the quarry is slow, all the elements either deliver great airtime or lateral hang time, so the lack of velocity doesn't bother me. Oh, and you also have one of the best inversions as the 0G roll gracefully levitates you out of your seat.
Unsurprisingly for some of you, the best Six Flags coaster is at Magic Mountain. This park has 20 roller coasters, and many of them could be number one at several Six Flags parks. Rides such as Riddler's Revenge, West Coast Racers, Goliath, and Superman Escape from Krypton are very good, but nowhere near the best in the park. The rides Full Throttle, Apocalypse the Ride, and Batman the Ride are great, and above the rest that I've named even if they are not the best in the park. I've yet to ride Wonder Woman Flight of Courage, but based on how much I enjoy Jersey Devil, this would definitely be number 3 or 4 in the park. So that leaves the top 3 we all know and love: Tatsu, Twisted Colossus, and X2. I love X2 for its first drop, intensity, and disorienting experience. However, it is held back by an incredibly painful final third that doesn't have the same enjoyability as the first parts. Tatsu is a serious contender for number 1 as well, because it's pretty much a perfect roller coaster with its balance between graceful smoothness and intense forces. I love the ride for how it interacts with terrain and how every element serves the overall layout. That said, my favorite Six Flags roller coaster is Twisted Colossus. 2 rides in one with marvelous drops, airtime, inversions, and speed. I love everything about the ride, and even when it's not dueling, it is definitely my favorite coaster in the Six Flags chain. How about you, Mike? Does Magic Mountain have your favorite coaster in the Six Flags park?
It may. My favorite here is Twisted Colossus as well, regardless if it's dueling. I just love how much ejector airtime is packed into the layout. Then the inversions are wonderful too. The stall offers tons of hang time, and the 0G roll has some serious whip to it. And if you get a duel, all these sweet elements are made better by the exciting visuals.
I've never been to Six Flags Mexico, but I don't want to exclude it, so Canobie Coaster has to take this one on his own. Mike, what's your favorite coaster at Six Flags Mexico?
I want to begin by saying I've never ridden Medusa at full strength. The ride was running the slower wheels for VR in my first visit, and just a 5-car train in my second visit. The ride was still very good, but I preferred Superman. This is the best ground-up Morgan Hyper. It starts with an interesting pre-lift. Then you have an amazing view of Mexico City on the lift hill, and a first drop chock full of airtime. The turnaround section is a delightful blend of strong floater airtime, laterals, and positive Gs. Then the return run can give very strong floater airtime if the mid-course isn't biting. If you've had a bad experience on the US Morgan Hypers, do not be afraid to try Superman out.
And that was the best roller coaster at every Six Flags park. Thank you for joining me in the discussion, Mike. It was fun to compare our number 1s at each park. For those who have not already, subscribe to Canobie Coaster and Theme Park Avenue for more content. I'll see you next time.